I've also supported Greens, I've supported Democrats. I'm a Democratic Socialist. And I am in this race mostly because I'm tired of corporate corruption in our politics. And I think as much as we want to tackle everything that's on this list that he handed out, I don't think we can tackle any of it until we tackle that, until we get corporate money out of politics and everybody who runs gets public financing of elections. I also support Medicare for All, slate down the people's platform, ending the private prisons, you name it. It's just, we still need to tackle the big thing first. All right? I think that's under 2 minutes. Outside of that, I've been coalition building for the majority of my campaign rather than focusing on money. So I'm working with Bernie-crats, Our Revolution, different groups like that. And they've been incredibly supportive, and if any of them are here, thank you. All right, I'm gonna pass on.
That was under 2 minutes, very good. I'll just stand up when you've got about 10 seconds left or so, okay?
Okay, 10-second time. Thank you, Robert. I am humbled and honored to be here. Humbled because I grew up in a family where this is not the kind of thing that you would ever have an opportunity to do. And in a family like that, you learn the most important lesson of being a Democrat, which is that we lift other people up. I grew up in a family where my father worked 3 jobs so that my mom could pursue her education and her dream. I also learned about problem solving and working together in an environment like that. So my story started with seeing what was happening in our culture, seeing the young people devote their lives to games, and wanting to do something about that. But as a young kid, I didn't know how to do that. And at the age of 18, I had not met a business owner in my life, but at 18 I did. And I realized that that's what you do to make a difference, initially. And so a couple years later, I became the youngest entrepreneur ever admitted to Entrepreneurs Organization in Seattle's history. And today I'm proud to say that my games are improving education in more than 50 universities. But as proud as I am of what I did in that portion of my life, my path into politics was equally circuitous. A friend of mine, now Lieutenant Governor, asked me to come and work on some legislation that impacted my community of entrepreneurs. And in those 3 months, we were successful at passing the Washington Jobs Act of 2014. I realized that I'd done more to lift people up that I care about than I'd done in the prior years, even though my entire life had been about trying to help others. So when I was approached again about entering this race, I didn't initially believe that I would be the right candidate. I spent months talking to the unions, the associations, the legislative district leadership, even the 5th LD leadership as well, and kept asking the question. And ultimately, when we got all of that data back, I realized not running is making a choice too. That I need to do what I can to prevent a Republican from going into the seat, because in my wrap-up, I see my time.
Tell us your name.
Braden Olson. Sorry about that, guys. I refuse to live in a country where kids who are born in families like mine and families like ours don't have the opportunity to be our future congressmen, to be business owners, to be anything that they want to be. So I'm running to make sure that that never happens. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Shannon Hader. I'm one of the new candidates. And so who am I? I am born and raised locally here in the area. I pretty much grew up in Auburn on my great-grandfather's old farm property. It's where my parents live today. And graduated from Auburn High School with one of my friends who's in the audience here. Essentially my dad was a Navy vet who was an air flight mechanic during the Korean War and ended up having a career with Boeing where he retired after 30 years of Boeing. My mom taught fitness classes and dance classes and arts at community centers and senior centers where she still volunteers today. And those are my strong roots that really sort of made sure I grew up knowing you needed to work hard, try to do the right thing, and really try to make the world a better place. And so professionally, I'm a doctor. I'm a pediatrician and internist and an infectious disease doc and a public health expert. And I've spent a lot of my life, both in the US and around the world, trying to make people's quality of life, their survival, their families stronger, their worlds healthier. Most recently, I had my second stint with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, where I was running our Division of Global HIV and TB, which is supported by one of the, I think, most successful programs of the American people, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, where essentially I got to work with the team to have about 2,000 people in 45 countries spending a budget of about $2.4 billion a year to save lives and stop epidemics. And since my first stint with the CDC back at the beginning of that program to now, we went from having fewer than 40,000 people in the entire world on life-saving HIV treatment to close to 20 million right now, and it's going to be larger when we count again at December 1st. So through all of that work, I'm sort of known as a problem solver. We listen to community voice and data and evidence and create solutions that are specific to a certain community for a certain time and space for the problems they're having then. And so that's why I'm sort of here. I'm home to make sure that we get some problems solved for our communities in the AIDS CD. I don't think that's happening. I don't think it's happening through Riker. And I think it's time to really put those things together and bring home solutions to our communities.
I'm taller than I was when I was in middle school. Thanks for coming out tonight. My name is Toby Whitney, and I live up in Snoqualmie Pass. And I am an engineer like some other folks up here. I worked at Microsoft for 10 years, and now I work at Amazon, building some of the stuff that some of you use. In addition to being an engineer, though, I've also always loved public service. My mother did this when she was a small business owner. We weren't wealthy, we were actually poor, but it was her model in life to give of herself and to make the world a better place than she found it. So while I was pretty good at computers, I really wanted to do public service when I got out of school, so I worked at the Congressional Budget Office. So you've heard about how bills are scored, how many people are being tossed off in healthcare, how expensive the tax bill's going to be. I used to be the person, or one of the two, that would draw the graphs and score the bills in Congress back in the late 80s. I have since gone back to be a legislative director for Jim McDermott and work on the Ways and Means Committee, working on legislation that you're familiar with. The rollout of the Affordable Care Act, the working on Dodd-Frank after the financial collapse, the extension on unemployment insurance in the wake of the financial collapse to make sure that people can stay in their homes. The reason to do this isn't to be called a congresswoman or a congressman, it's to make people's lives better. The largest problem I saw when I was working as Congress were the dozen meetings a day I took and had to take with corporate lobbyists, and saw them running up the score, and saw the very small number of meetings I took that were about helping people who were in the lower middle class in our economy, and helping people deal with this increasingly fast globalizing economy that we deal with. So that's why I'm running, to actually make a difference in people's lives and to help make the economy work for folks and try to release the stranglehold of lobbying and lobbying money has on our democracy. Thanks.
So how many of you have seen me speak before? Yeah, so you know I do things a little differently. Don't be fooled by my small stature, because I've been slaying giants for decades. And my name is Mona Das, and I'm also running for Congress with all of my colleagues here. And I'll tell you some stories. I just now realized I'm the longest candidate in this race, so I'll tell you what I've been doing in the district and a couple of things that I believe in. You can read my resume online. I'm sure many of you already have. I came to this country with $6. My family came here when I was 8 months old with $6. So immigration issues are extremely important to me. One of the things that I absolutely love about this district is it's so incredibly diverse. And if you follow me on Facebook, you know I've been everywhere. Been to Wenatchee twice in the last week, and we've been holding town halls all over the place. And one of the things that really I believe, and Flip the 8th is the Democratic Party thing, ours is Unite the 8th. Because if we are going to take this district, and if we are going to win this district, we have to unite folks. And what I've seen is that the issues are the same. So the wet side and the dry side, or the central side and the wet side, however you want to call it, the issues are the same. The solutions are very different. So take immigration. We just hosted an immigration town hall a couple days ago in Wenatchee, and the solutions are different for what they need on the dry side and what we need on the wet side. I get pulled into rooms because of the way that I look by Indian immigrants who are struggling with immigration issues, and their kids are not protected under DACA. Very different issues. So I want to just share with you a couple of things that I believe in. I believe that women have the right to choose. I believe that climate change is real. And I believe that immigrants are the reason why our country is already great. So I look forward to going to Congress and beating Dino Rossi for the fourth time. You know, this will be his fourth time loser. And I look forward to having you all behind me and having your support. Thank you. Quiet ground tonight. You're a pin drop in here. Oh.
I'm Kim Schreier. I'm running for Congress in the 8th. I am not your likely candidate. I'm no slick politician. I am a pediatrician, a wife, and a mom. I have really deep roots in this community. I've taken care of thousands of children in Issaquah over the past 16 years, learning their stories, meeting their families. So please make no mistake, I love my job. I never thought I would do anything else. And then the 2016 election happened, and like many of us, it rocked my world. My son asked the next morning if we had to move to a different country. And of course my answer was that we needed to make this one better. So, politics became incredibly personal. Personal as a woman, personal as a mom, as a person with a background in science, personal, of course, as a pediatrician, and personal for me because I have type 1 diabetes, my own personal pre-existing condition. So what did I do? I joined Indivisible. I marched with the women. I doubled down on my donations to the ACLU and Planned Parenthood. And then when the first Trump Care bill was proposed, I went with a couple other docs and we talked with the people at Dave Reichert's office. We told him all the reasons this was bad for the district. And 2 days later, he voted for it anyway. And that was the last straw for me. We deserve better. We deserve representatives who listen, who stick up for us, who stand up for us. I am deeply concerned about the health and the well-being of my patients and their families under this administration. This is not just health care, because you don't have well-being if you don't have clean air and clean water, if you don't have a great public education that prepares you for a middle-class life, and if you don't have Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid to protect you in your older years. So, I am running for the families of this district. You all need to make the decision about who can beat Dino Rossi. Elect me and I'll fight for our families.
Hi there. My name is Jason Ritterreiser, and I was born and raised in this district. Growing up in Ellensburg, I learned just how hard it is for a middle-class family to get ahead. My dad was a police officer, and he would come home at night, take his uniform off, put a Domino's pizza t-shirt on, and go out and deliver pizza to make ends meet. And my mom was focused on bringing up my brother and me. She stayed home, she started a small business in our home, a daycare, in order to help pay the bills. And my job was to focus on my education. So I got a strong public education in Ellensburg. I graduated from Ellensburg High School, we were the Bulldogs. And then I went to work on a hay farm to help pay for college. I loved hay, I drove Swather, got a degree from the University of Washington in economics, then went to work for Congressman Rick Larson in the 2nd Congressional District. I spent time with Congressman Larson, went to law school in Chicago, came back here and served as a criminal prosecutor for King County. I served in the Special Assault Unit and the Violent Crime Unit and went to work every single day focused on protecting our community. And now, as a lawyer, I've represented thousands of Washington workers. who have been screwed over by big businesses, corporate greed, that take advantage of their workforce. I represented a woman who was fired for being pregnant out of wedlock. Seriously. Took on a $1 billion corporation that fired a woman, a child care worker, because she had a medical condition. I've also brought the very first case in the state of Washington to protect nursing mothers in the workplace. I even took on government when they failed to protect a woman who was a domestic violence victim. And now, I'll run for Congress to be an advocate for the middle class, to be a voice for working families, and to take on Washington, D.C. that is backwards. They're literally, tomorrow, going to vote on a bill, a tax bill, that gives trillions of dollars of tax breaks to billionaires and corporations and make the middle class pay more. And that's backwards. I'm going to be a bulldog for the middle class. I'm going to stand up every single day for what's right. Please elect me to Congress. Thanks so much.
And I think we should give applause to all of you.
So we're also hoping to have Dino running against Cantwell this year as well, so we can do 2 races in a year. We're going to call that one for the thumb, so we can have his 5th in a row. So if anyone has any questions that they haven't submitted, I'm going to ask questions, and then we're going to go back and forth. Fairly quick answers, about 30 seconds each. We'll start with Robert and go right, and next time we'll start with Jason and go left, I guess. First question is, when elected and in Congress, what will you do to regulate Wall Street?
Well, it's more than just regulating. It's also about keeping it in check. Wall Street is a bigger issue than just regulations. So it's an obvious answer to say bring back regulations that were canceled that did keep some rein in, but it's also about bringing the money back and not making our lives contingent on it and protecting us from the whims of Wall Street, whether or not that is mergers and layoffs, whether that's incentivizing the near monopolies or monopolies of corporations. And that I think sits outside of that. Once you bring in the stuff that's incentivized by Wall Street and you bring back the regulations, it's going to be cleaned up quite a bit. And we need to focus. Sorry.
30 seconds, not that much time. Sorry.
So you guys all are on a 30-second time.
Thank you. We talk about the legislation that's happening right now. First off, I would oppose the Republican tax bill that's in place right now. But we need to talk about philosophy because there's going to be more tax bills coming. It is a philosophy of a war on the middle class, and it absolutely relates to Wall Street. Cutting corporate taxes will not create jobs. I talked about this yesterday. I will continue to talk about this. As a business person, I know that will not be the solution. What will be is investing in our small businesses, our mom and pops, our startups. That's where net job growth comes from. That's what I would do.
So I think it's really important to continue to make sure that we are getting a balance between innovation investments and making sure that we're not being gouged, that our communities are not being essentially sacrificed in order to have big business sort of in control. That's not an uncommon thought, I think, in this crowd. So how do you go about getting there? Certainly making sure that the tax adjustments are fair and are rewarding to the middle class, more so than big business, and calling out bad behavior as soon as it happens. And I think the best example I have in my field over the last year has been price gouging from new stand-up pharma companies who buy old drugs and increase the prices 1,000-fold. We can't have bad behavior that goes unmatched, and calling out the specifics at the same time as we're looking to build the base is really important.
So the question about how to restrict Wall Street. I think what we all want is we don't want any industry to have more influence than any voter does on our political system. So I think the first thing is a systemic fix to lobbying and its money. The tax bill that's in front of us right now is a massive shift from the lower middle class of the country to the corporations of this company for a permanent tax cut, and then they put the rest of it on a credit card. That's how they paid for it. So I think that this tax bill should be revenue neutral, and they shouldn't be taking out of your pockets to pay for corporate tax cuts. More important than you can do specific things around things like carried interest, you should get rid of it.
Funny you should ask. I was actually on Wall Street last week. I rang the bell at Wall Street, and I want to just say it was an experience of a lifetime. To be a woman of color, to stand up there, where mostly older white men have rung that bell for a long time, was fabulous. It was unbelievable. And what I saw was the friends of mine from grad school had launched an ETF. And this is what, talking about the change, it's called Change Finance, and it is all about making sure that the companies that they invest in are sustainable, have fair labor practices, and also that they're not investing in fossil fuels. And so for me, what I see is hope and change in the future, and that's what we can do, is encourage more of that.
Mona,
Yes,
can you guys see that from there?
we can see it, yeah. You might want to just like wave it like that, really big, because 30 seconds is not very much time. Goodbye.
Bullet points, bullet points.
So we need Dodd-Frank regulations. That's number one. Number two, we need to not have a cabinet that is filled with Goldman Sachs people, because then you have business running the country and not government running the country. And third, we need a tax structure that gives breaks to small businesses and helps Main Street, not to giant corporations, which just helps Wall Street and the wealthy.
30 seconds is a really short period of time. Here's how we regulate Wall Street. Dodd-Frank is great, but what it's done is put a crunch on small businesses because lending has dried up at the local level. We need to focus our system on how we actually build small businesses. We need to get our dark money out of politics. We need to close the gap between the rich and the poor. We also need to reinstitute a bill called the Glass-Steagall Act, which makes sure that banks can't bet with your money and risk essentially the same crash of the 2008 crisis. Thank you. 12 months from now. So I want to focus on winning this election and hold the Trump administration accountable at every single turn.
Very likely. Can't do it without a Democratic majority in Congress.
I trust in David Mueller, and I'm really excited about what he's doing. And it's not David Mueller, is it? It's Robert Mueller, isn't it? Yeah, sorry. Yes, and I agree with Kim. We have to have a majority, and I think hopefully before we get there, he's already gone.
The first job is to get elected. I think it's an extremely serious act to take. I'd like to see what the articles of impeachment are and what the results of the Mueller investigation are first. I think the point of it is to do your job, and if you're there and there are things to vote on that should be voted on, someone.
Well, I'm hoping by the time it's January 2019 and getting signed in, we're in a whole new place compared to where we're at right now. And that a lot has happened between now and then, and we're not just waiting for the election in 2018. But let's be optimistic also that January 2019 will have a majority of the Dems in Congress, and we'll have a whole host of solutions open to us that I will fully participate in.
Going to pull a quick quote from some stuff that we heard from Bob Ferguson the other week, which is ultimately it is the rule of law that is holding Trump accountable now, and it's the rule of law that has protected our country for a very long time. So while I agree with Kim, it would be a very likely action I would be taking. It needs to be based on the rule of law. We need to hold him accountable for something. The thing I think is most likely is probably something to do with taking us to war, which is where he's headed. That's where I would absolutely sign on to some articles of impeachment.
I think he's technically already done some stuff that's impeachable. I would support it, but I would be just as scared as having a Mike Pence presidency as I would a Donald Trump presidency, to be completely honest. So I would feel ambivalent about it, but I do support the impeachment.
Thank you. We have our next question from the crowd. Will you support labor unions' right to organize and oppose so-called right-to-work laws?
Definitely. I've actually been heavily affected by right-to-work laws. I used to live in Arizona, and the right-to-work laws there are insane. I was actually, during the recession, I was let go from where I was. I was the highest paid teacher where I was working at the time, and I was the most recent hire, so last in, first out. And he was able to make it so I didn't get unemployment because of the right-to-work laws in Arizona. So it was a cascading effect. On top of that, all my clients that I had on the outside of that job had to freeze their budgets because of the recession. So right to work is not a friend to anybody.
Yeah, I'll start with yes, and it's an interesting question for me because I consider myself a pro-worker person and a pro-business person. Ultimately, I support a living wage, and I think that we need to fight for that in a way that also, if we're looking at tax cuts for the big companies, how are we supporting our small businesses and paying those living wages? So we need an advocate doing both of those things, and yes is the original question.
So this is an important question to me because I am the granddaughter of a Safeway truck driver. So my grandfather drove truck back and forth across the pass for my entire life and for 46 years. And my mom tells stories about how when she was growing up, they knew when the Teamsters arrived because they went from getting one pair of shoes a year, regardless of their feet size, to being able to get new shoes every time their feet grew. And so I've seen the importance of unions to a family, and I want to make sure our families can be strong.
Yes to the original question. The right to organize is core to our democracy and core to the challenges we face in the economy today. The work that I've done when I was working in the Congress is mostly about misclassification, the rights of the workers down at the port, how the service workers get to unionize. So I'm enormously supportive of this, and I think it's a key to making our economy fair for everyone.
I have a really easy one-word answer, yes.
Right-to-work laws undermine unions, and unions are responsible for so much of what we count on today. Collective bargaining has gotten us good living wages, medical care, weekends free. The labor movement is to be treasured in this country. So no to the right-to-work laws.
Labor unions gave us the 40-hour work week, they gave us a weekend, they gave us meal periods. I'm a labor employment lawyer. I brought the very first case, a class action lawsuit on behalf of union workers at CTEC when they weren't getting their $15 minimum wage. Brought a class action against the healthcare company that was rounding their employees' wages. I stand firmly with labor. I am proud to have announced the very first labor endorsement in this race, Operating Engineers Local 612, and I will combat right-to-work laws at every single turn.
I'd like to apologize. These are 7th grader benches. We were promised 9th grader benches, so they're just like they're smaller than the questions in the crowd. What would you do to support and ensure net neutrality?
Yeah, I think that freedom on the internet is absolutely quintessential to Americans and to our country. I will absolutely protect open internet, access to the internet, and make sure that that is not rolled back in the United States of America.
I agree. I just really do not believe that money and whoever pays controls who we get our information from. We're already seeing what happens when you do that with cable TV, and I don't want that done with our internet.
I started my career in the high-tech industry And I don't know where we would be without the internet. How many times a day do you say, Google that, Google this, Google that? And making this an issue is core to our democratic values, and we absolutely have to fight it.
So I've been working on the internet and internet security for a long time, almost 20 years. And think what the opposite of net neutrality is. Net favoritism. I think having telcos or telephone companies gate and control who gets to have what access to which information at what speeds and when, based on who can pay the most, is a threat to the information society of the future. So net neutrality is key and important. I've worked on it, I care about it. This is essential to the future of our democracy.
Absolutely do everything to protect net neutrality. There's a reason why emerging democracies, the public really focuses on access to the internet, access to information, and democratization of information. And there's a reason why dictators try to shut it down. We can never give up that democracy of our information because it gives us our freedom to act. So I would support it.
Not only would I support it, but I'm currently working with a woman who authored Women in Tech on an amendment to the CFAA, so the Computer Fraud Abuse Act. I'm very active in the cybersecurity community. I spoke a little bit about how this is influencing gun control and some other issues as well. So huge support of net neutrality, already working on amending legislation in this category with some of the leading experts in the field.
Yes, net neutrality is insanely important. I think we need to take a step further and actually make an internet bill of rights. The internet has taken over how we do everything. Without net neutrality, we wouldn't have companies like Google and Amazon. We wouldn't have paradigm shifting things happening all around our country that are disrupting how we live in a very positive way. And we need to keep that going. And it's also the last bastion of good information that we have available.
Next question from the crowd. Other than your party ID, how do you differ from Dino Rossi, and how do you plan to make those differences clear and out fundraising? Other than your party ID, how do you differ?
Well, as a democratic socialist, I'm not sure I could be more different than Dino Rossi. I am for free college tuition. I am for Medicare for all. I am for having a basic standard of living for every American so we can surpass Sweden as the happiest country in the world. We have the resources, we have the technology, we have everything we need to do it right now.
It's an interesting question where I think I'll differ a little bit. So I understand from feedback I've gotten from around the district that a supermajority of people are looking for a business person to take over this role. And so people will look at Dino as a business person. I fundamentally do not see him that way. He's a real estate person who's taken advantage of people in foreclosure situations, who's done slumlord arrangements. He is not a business person. So I am a business person. I've done that in creating jobs from a startup, from the ground up, and from improving education. So we want to win that battle, and I see myself doing that. And also, fundraising isn't an election.
I think we're all predicting that he's going to be pretty tough and formidable in this election. So how am I similar? I'm pretty tough. I've played with some big fishes in my own sort of pond, and I don't back into the corner easily. Where I'm different is I didn't decide to do this because I wanted to win a race. I decided to do this because I want to serve the people of Auburn and the people of Washington 8. And I think having that caring and compassion at the heart of what I'm doing is going to make us really different.
Republicans usually have an advantage when they run as business people and they care about the private sector economy, and I've been working in businesses since I was 12. They are often pretty good at national security, or at least they say so, and they play that part, and I've been working in national security for a long time, so I'm happy about that and how that matchup works. I'm really concerned about his belief that he should credit card tax breaks. I'm really concerned that he believes in trickle-down economics. And I think that his desire to privilege his friends rather than people who work every day for a living is the biggest challenge we face, and we're going to lose.
Well, how am I different than Dino Rossi? Well, I am a little brown girl from India. I think that says it all. I am feisty, and I believe that climate change is real, and I also believe that women have the right to choose what they do with their own bodies, and those are two things that I know that he fights very hard against. So those are a couple of the differences. Oh, there was a question about money. Yeah, so he's raised $1 million, I think Braden just told me, and we know that raising a lot of money helps, but it doesn't win every election.
There's a world of difference between who I am and what I stand for and who Dino Rossi is and what he stands for. On the one hand, a citizen pediatrician deeply concerned about our community who's willing to leave her job to do this and fight for the community, and on the other, a perpetual politician who is exactly the problem that we have in DC. He is raising a ton of money, and it takes a ton of money to win races. Right now, I am doing very well with fundraising. I'm leading the pack, and I will raise enough to get my message out to the voters. Right now, none of us are known by anybody. Money does play.
I'm different from Dino Rossi because I connect both sides of the mountains. If we're going to win in this election as Democrats, we need to be able to unite the east part of the district with the west part of the district. I was born and raised in Ellsworth, Washington. Spent my entire professional career here in Western Washington. I understand both sides of the mountains. I also have spent my career representing people and fighting for workers' rights and fighting for working families. And I've never lost an election.
So we've, since Trump took office, we've seen a lot of resistance, Women's March, Invisible, and so on. Much of it has been, or most of it, I think, has been driven by women. And almost half the candidates in this race right here are women. So what effect do you think that will have on this election?
What effect do female candidates have on this election?
Look, I mean, there's no question that women are underrepresented in politics. I think it's fantastic. The one, maybe the singular thing that has brought us all together is understanding that in order to resist against Donald Trump, we all got to come together, and we got to do it now. And I think having a robust primary system where we figure out the best person to take on Dino Rossi and win this seat is absolutely important. There's no question we have strong leaders who are women in Washington. We've got Patty Murray leading the charge. We've got Maria Cantwell. I think that's fantastic. I think I'm the best candidate in this race to win this district because this district's unique. Thanks.
Isn't it funny how when you put a misogynistic person in the White House, women get ticked off and run for office? I think we're going to have a wave. I think this will be another year of the woman. I think we really need it to be. I tend to not play that card, but there is a big problem with representation, and we need our voices heard.
For every 5 members of Congress, less than 1 is a woman. Let that sink in. That is not representation. We need representatives that look like us, act like us, think like us, so that they can represent the rest of us.
As the grown son of a feminist single mom, I think that she would have been filled with delight to see what happened last Tuesday with all these amazing women running and winning. And I think that the more women that join this race, the better. And I also think that we can use it as a time to talk about this amazing and important cultural conversation we're having right now about gender-based violence and how it's not working in our culture and something we really need to address. So I think it's all upside and positive stuff.
Well, I think an important thing to ask is not just what does it mean to have women candidates, but, we have to admit that Trump won because a lot of women voted for Trump. And I'm hoping they have a lot of buyer's regret by now. And I'm seeing that in the marches, I'm seeing it in the waves, I'm seeing it with a lot of young women who didn't actually vote, but then started marching afterwards. So I'm hoping we're seeing an activation of the women voters to be able to come out and change the face of Congress going forward.
I would say that I'm, proud that I've had the opportunity over the better part of the last decade to work with, canvass, knock on doors, and help elect a lot of female leaders in Washington State. We are an amazing state in the union in that we have 50% female representation at the federal level right now. By no stretch can we not do more. I'm so excited to fight side by side with the women leaders that we have here locally and in this congressional race should they become the primary contender.
I think it's amazing that women are running. I'm actually working heavily with Sarah Smith running in the 9th. We have so many powerful women running as Democrats all around Washington. I hope it's something that keeps trending and keeps moving on. I just finished canvassing for Minka, and I'm so happy that she won, and that means a lot for me because I'm with Wolfpack, and she's already vowed to support our push to get money out of politics.
Thank you. We're going to ask each candidate to wrap up with a 1-minute statement to close out. So, seeing how you wound yourself in and out of that lovely spot there, we'll start with you.
Okay. So, I'm somebody who's been affected a lot over the years by the policies that our politicians have done. Presidentially, the policies that Clinton put through affected me in a lot of ways because it meant my father lost his job while I was in college, and it almost made me have to drop out of college. Luckily, I had a good source of friends who pooled their money together and helped me make up the difference. I was working over 40 hours a week at the time. Fast forward some of his stuff, and then compounded with a lot of what Bush did led to the recession. And it's time that kind of stuff ends, and we need to get principled politicians, not just people who speak well and make promises they don't keep.
Everything I can think back going through my life, growing up in a family where we didn't have needs and we didn't have access, and one day getting the idea that, I wanted to own a business and make a difference, right? My entire life has been uphill battles. I remember when I was graduating from school, and I was told because I didn't come from money and I didn't come from a family with access, you have a less than 1% chance of getting the capital for your company to start your business. And I fought to the point where I didn't even have enough money in my bank account to get food before we brought that money in, and I made it happen. I'm a big believer in what you can do when you have a dream. So, I'm also coming at this, putting some of my own resources now into this, raising money. We'll get to numbers soon, but I think Kim and I will be in the front of the pack in terms of fundraising. So I'm going to go after this. I know Dino and how he thinks, and it is not a good representation for this state. It's not a good representation for this district, and I will make sure that the people know that.
Well, I just want to end by thanking you all. So thanking you all for being here tonight on a weekday evening, and thank you to the organizers for letting me come and introduce myself and meet you all for the first time. I look forward to hearing from you and to talking to you and hearing what problems keep you up at night. I'm a problem solver. I need to understand what your priorities are. And I look forward to hearing what your vision is for the better quality of life and the better future that we can bring to our communities here. So thank you very much.
There's a lot of focus put on candidates and who they are and whether we're one of you and those kind of questions. Where do we stand? I think this election is about who the best candidate is, but I think it's as much or more about voters. And this district is an essential bridge. People call it gerrymandered. I don't. We have a nonpartisan voting commission. This was agreed to by Republicans and Democrats in unanimous form. It's a 50-50 district. It's got a fantastic combination of what the economy is like down in Auburn and here and across the mountains where I live. So this is an opportunity, as the only district of its kind in the state, to have a real conversation about a district that looks exactly like America and who you want to represent you and where you want to go. Because after seeing so many quick political waves in our last few 10 to 20 years, we know this period's going to end, and it's all of our jobs to make it come out in a positive way, but not take a Bannon-esque, even worse turn. So that's what I did.
I'm an optimist. My family came here with $6. So there I really have no other choice but to be an optimist. And for me, I look at this election, and one of the things I love about this area is that it's a microcosm for the entire U.S., right? It's so divided, east, it's divided central, west, it's suburban, urban, it's Republican, it's Democrat, it's still Hillary versus Bernie, it's still so divided. And that's why we launched Unite the 8th, because the only way we're going to win and we are going to defeat Dino Rossi, it's not going to be money. He is going to probably outraise all of us. But it is going to be about uniting. It is going to be about a message of hope. And I just, as I mentioned, had the immigration town hall in Wenatchee, I think that was yesterday. I'm losing track of my days. And the wonderful, beautiful Latina woman said the most amazing thing. She said, "We've been living the American dream, and it's time to wake up." So I encourage us all to stay awake.
Last week, Emily's List came out and endorsed me as the candidate that they think can beat Dino Rossi. If you would like a woman pediatrician to fight for your health care, for your kids, for your education, for your clean air and water, your public lands and jobs, elect me. I would love to earn your vote.
I believe that the job of a congressman is to learn and listen, and then help and lead. And this is a job you get to interview for every 2 years. That's why I launched my campaign with 30 town halls in 30 days in the month of September. Listening to people all over the district, understanding these issues, so you can go to battle in Washington, D.C. and stand up for working families. The choice of this election is going to be clear. It's going to be between Dino Rossi and a Democrat. I've spent my career taking down bullies and standing up for what's right. And that's exactly the type of representative I'm going to be. I would love to have your support, and thank you so much for being here.